The big story. We'll be talking about quite an interesting discussion today, safeguarding the integrity of Nigeria's examinations. Lessons from WIAC and the UTME 2025. Well, I'm sure you must be aware now that there was widespread confusion across several exam centers in Nigeria as candidates sitting for the West African Senior School Certificate examination faced hours long delays in writing the English language paper. At multiple locations on Wednesday, the exam scheduled to begin at 9 a.m. did not commence until midday. In some centers, the last paper did not start until nightfall, with students in Lagos reportedly still writing as late as 11:45 p.m. under torchlights. The disruption, which triggered anger among parents and sparked an online backlash, occurred in several southwestern states, including Lagos, Oyo, Ogun State, Osun State, and even in the South states here in Delta State. Some sources reported that the paper was leaked online, prompting the West African Examination Councils to replace it at the last minute. Responding to the incident, WAEC issued a statement apologizing to candidates, parents, and schools. The acting head of public affairs, Moyoshola Adeshina, said the disruptions was a result of intensified security efforts to prevent the questions leakage. Well, that's for WAEC. And also, the Joint Admissions and Matriculations Board on Wednesday last week finally admitted to errors which affected the performance of students during 2025 Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examinations. The registrar of the board, Professor Ishak Oloyede, admitted to this during an ongoing press briefing in Abuja, where he said that what should have been a moment of joy has changed due to one or two errors. And I just quoted him. And of the 1.9 million candidates who sat the UTME, over 1.5 million reportedly scored below 200 out of the maximum 400 marks, raising concerns across the education sector. According to the examination body, a total of 955,069 results were processed, and out of which only 4,756 candidates, that's 0.24%, scored 320 and above. And this morning, while looking at safeguarding the integrity of Nigeria's examinations from the lessons now that can be drawn from WAEC and the UTME 2025 issues, we have guests in the studio this morning. We have Uche Oboko, and she is an associate professor in English, Dennis Osadebe University. Good morning to you, ma'am, and thank you for joining me on the show this morning.
Thank you very much.
I'm
happy to be here.
Yes, delighted to have you here. Yeah. Okay, and we also have on the show Mrs. Etu Tedlin. I hope I said that correctly, and I'm delighted to have you here as well.
Thank you so much.
All right, and she's also the a lecturer in the Department of Accounting, Dennis Osadebe University. And yes, since they are experts in the field, they will be helping us make sense of it all and to tell us the impact of these delays on our educational system. So the first question that I'll be asking this morning is, what do you think of the reasons why it gave as the primary causes behind the significant delays in WASSE examinations? They said there was a paper leak and that so many issues came up, that's why the papers arrived late. But how does that really sound to you?
Thank you for inviting me to the studio.
All right.
And I will start by telling us that education is the passport to the future.
Indeed.
Yeah, and tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. So when it comes to education, I must tell you that it's the bedrock of every nation. No nation can grow above the educational standard. It's sad when you get to read or hear about some of these things, that some people took exams up to 9 p.m.
Yes.
That's sad. That's disappointing. However, somebody has come out to say that it was caused due to some errors, square to examination leakage. And I want to tell you that when it comes to education and leakages, that is something that should not be tolerated.
Okay.
That is something that should not be encouraged. Because when we talk about malpractice, which is equal to leakages, is a rape on education. It makes a mess of hard work. Now, when papers leak, what happens to students who have actually read, who have actually prepared for this examination? So you sit down, as you're trying to read, do your best, someone copies from the background. It doesn't encourage excellence. It doesn't encourage academic. That is wrong. However, what WAEC has done to tell us there was examination leakage, I was thinking that that could have been prevented.
Okay.
And because they had to change the paper almost immediately, that now caused the delay. When students take examination in the night, how do you verify the authenticity of that result? When students have to write the examination in the middle of the night, it puts a question mark on the authenticity of the examination. Now, in some students and in some centers, I saw students using like phones and lights to sit for examination.
Yes.
I wonder how the international body will look at this happening in our nation. But oftentimes, Africa, we say, is a developing nation, and we want to believe that one day we come to the point where we'll be able to manage our educational system so that these glitches we'll see, human errors and all that, will be able to be taken care of, so to say, so that we grow beyond them, because it does not help our educational system. In fact, it casts aspersion on our educational system, and it's not good for us as a people. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. And well, you already did answer the question, and then you moved to the point of explaining what the impact is going to be on our education.
Of course.
But I'm still going to come to you with that, Mrs. Etu. How would the alleged exam paper leak have impacted the administration of the WAEC English language exam?
Thank you so much. With regards to that question,
Yes.
If the teachers or the examiners actually kept to their words as teachers and they actually carry out their duties, you discover that these papers will not leak in any way. But maybe due to their own negligence, that must have caused this leakage. But nevertheless, the truth remains the same that when you are setting your exams questions, not until the very last minutes to the examination period, you don't allow even a friend or anybody to see it. And as such papers will not leak. But maybe due to one closeness to one person or the other, it leads to leakage. But in my own way, I believe that with strict adherence to the educational standards, such papers will not leak. And besides that, if those papers are actually kept, nobody will have access to it. It will not make the people that actually prepared look as if they didn't do anything. Then it will not be a star of an educational system. Because after all, if you have it that this paper, we are going to get it, there's no need of preparation. But the situation where they know that, no matter the cost, if you don't read, you're on your own. So with that as a consequence, you discover that these children will actually put in their best and they will actually read. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Well, I know that earlier you did say that the results, the exam papers being reprinted and all of that was necessary because if the papers had leaked, it would have impacted those who studied for the exams. But I would still ask you, do you think that WAEC facing the logistical challenges that it had to face in reprinting and redistributing the examination papers on that kind of short notice, do you think it was really necessary, seeing how it all played out, students writing exams in the dark and then using torchlights to write the exams? Still, the malpractice that was being avoided, don't you think being in the dark would have also encouraged it in one way or the other?
Thank you very much. Remember, I did allude to that earlier.
Yes.
Where students write in the dark and using torches to write exam. The problem we are trying to avoid, you see, we'll create it. I think the best thing we can do is to try to avoid examination or leakages of papers.
Okay.
It's sad enough to say that an examination such as WAEC, West African Examination Council, West African examination, we talk about leakages and all that. It's sad. And it does not speak well for us as a people. My advice simply is, in as much as we expect human errors, then we should understand that malpractice will cost a nation a lot.
Okay.
Because hard work will be shoven aside. Hard work will be thrown overboard. If the student knows that if I don't read, I have a way to get the questions, then why would you want the students to read? The student will not want to read. Even a student who manages to read will be discouraged, because for such a student, I read, the other person will not read, but at the end of the day, we'll get the same scores.
Or even do better.
Yes. It's discouraging. It's discouraging. But WAEC has come up to say that because of the leakage, of course, we'll have to reprint the paper and all that. And of course, logistics.
Yes.
So before the papers could move from point A to point B,
Yes.
a lot of delays you expected. And it happened in English, which happens to be my area of study.
Yes.
And when we talk about English, where the student have to be tested for mechanical accuracy, expression, a lot, and all that pressure, how do you expect the students to do well? And when you expect a student to write something like an essay in the dark, what do you expect? And what do you think will be the mindset of the student? Student who writes examination in the night. How about the security implication?
Yes, we'll get to the security.
We'll get to that, but the whole thing put together,
Yes.
I mean, it's sad enough.
It is.
It is not good for our nation and for the educational system. I maintain that if examination should be done, we should seek for integrity in every exam, because that is what makes it an examination. If it doesn't have credibility, if it doesn't have integrity, why is it an examination? Why is it a test? We'll get there.
All right.
Thank you.
So yes, strive to seek for integrity for every examination. This morning on the big story, we've been talking about the recent issues with JAMB and WAEC, and which has led us to the discussion on safeguarding the integrity of Nigeria's examinations, lessons from WAEC and UTME 2025. And before we went on that break, we were talking about all the issues that had to come up with the examinations, students having to take the exams under pressure, how that affects the integrity and credibility of the exams. And now I would like to ask, how would these delays leading to safety concerns and those who had to write exams under torchlights or in insecure areas affect students' performance, the students' performance during the examination? I'll come to you, Mrs. Etu, with that.
With regards to the delay
Yes.
in the examination,
Yes.
you discover that delay now, to some extent, is going to put pressure on the students. Instead of them to write perfectly well in a calm manner, you see that anxiety will come.
Yes.
You see that they may be perturbed one way or the other. Instead of sitting down calmly to write the exams, because it's getting dark, and most of them, it has never been heard of before that they are writing exam with torchlight in Nigeria. It has never been heard, and is uncalled for. As such, you discover that these students, their performance will not be as credible as compared to when it is daytime, when they are writing this exam in a calm manner. Like sorry to say, like me, for example, once it's getting dark, I'll say, it's getting late, I'm going, that alone that is getting dark and one is still outside, how much more those children is getting dark and these children are still writing exam, instead of writing it in a calm manner with that which they actually came with from home, you discover them writing under pressure. Anxiety will set in. Though they will say they try their best, but before you know it, they will not write it under pressure, thinking that let me write and write, instead of writing in such a calm manner. And to some extent, you discover that these will affect their performance. Instead of writing in a calm manner, in an accurate way, without little pressure and anxiety, instead of saying this or that, before you know it, they will just do the opposite. So to me, I feel the JAMB or WAEC on their own should have to improve on their own preparations for these students. They are our children. Because you feel it's somebody else's child. No. Whatever you do to them is your own child. So if they prepare very well and they prepare timely, timeliness has to come in for such things to take place accurately. They have to be mindful of the time. And not only being timely, once it's 8 o'clock, let it be 8. Let it, if it's 2.5 hours, let it be. There is no need of shifting it into the dark.
Yes.
And in the dark, anything can actually happen. Now, the malpractice that you're actually trying to avoid to some extent. I don't know whether you understand what I mean.
Yes.
So please, they should wake up and make their preparations on time with strictness attached to their preparation. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for that. Now, well, before we started, we already established the fact that the students had arrived to take these exams at 8 a.m. and having to wait the long hours till night time. First of all, they were already exhausted. Just having to wait tirelessly. I mean, I find waiting tirelessly more exhausting than even actually doing something for the whole hours. Yes. And then the fact that you had to write in the dark, and some parents coming to look for their children out there with rain and the dark and all of that. So if at the end of the day, this affects the results of the examination, say there's a mass failure, do you think there's anything parents can do to sort of contest the results of the examination?
Thank you very much for this question. Nelson Mandela once said that education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world. That tells you the importance of education to any nation. Now, look at the whole drama. Where students have to take the examination in the night. And in the dark, anything can happen.
Yes.
That now casts doubt on the integrity of the examination, like I said earlier.
Yes.
How about impersonation? How do you know that it's not candidate A who is supposed to be there that is there? Because given the time of the day, anything can happen.
Yes.
Away from that. Now, crashing in psychology will tell you that once anxiety is high, internalization is low.
Yes.
Can you imagine a student who came out since 8 a.m. to sit for an examination, and this student is not allowed? She or he has to wait till 8 p.m., 9 p.m. Do you talk about exhaustion, psychological trauma, distortion? How do you think that the student will be in the right frame of mind to sit for this examination? Of course, the student is already tensed. Does not know if he will still sit for the examination or not. The whole thing is expected to affect the performance of the student. Compared to when the student will come out at 8, if the examination should take place at 9, and you start at exactly 9. Okay, give and take. Human error logistics.
Maybe 1 or 2 hours delayed. Yes.
But even at that, it is too much, I don't say. Examination is not just something you jump into. You need to prepare. It calls for a lot of preparations. And this is West African examination. Why don't we put logistics in place that will help us to guide against some of these things? I am not trying to rule out, okay, that human errors, like our prof, they came out to say.
Yes.
He did the preparations. He prepared very well, but somehow human errors came in and obstructed the whole process. Taking that into cognizance, we need to prepare, guide against. Why don't we have option B, plan B? Should there be any in events where such happens, what do we fall back? I think that will help. Assuming Wayek had prepared, okay, let's have an alternative. Should there be any error or distortion in the process, we can come up with something else immediately. But because they have to reset the examination and all that, or possibly go to the examination pool to get some of these questions, then try to arrange and all that. It affected the whole system. Now look at anxiety on part of parents. Some coming to wait, some coming to take their children. The children are not ready. They are still in the hall. Can you imagine the rowdiness?
Yes, yes.
Around examination centers. And what do you think that the student is sitting for an examination, just to say, here is this parent's voice from the background,
Yes.
waiting for the child to finish the examination. Other parents talking too. The student is unsettled. I mean, remember, education is not just preparation for life. Education, of course, is the backbone. It's life itself. Dewi will tell you that education is not preparation for life, but education is life itself. So for any nation to gamble with its education, it is ridiculous. It is. No nation can grow above the educational standard. So I want to plead, I want to appeal to the bodies involved. Whatever we can do, or whatever they can do, to guide against some of these anomalies, it will, so that it does not cast doubt on our educational system and examinations taken in Nigeria. Because when these things are seen,
Yes.
what do you think people will say about it? How do you think they will look at us as a nation where students will have to take examination? They might. It doesn't speak well for our educational system. While I sympathize with the bodies, I sympathize with WAEC, I sympathize with JAMB. It has happened, but let us learn from this experience and try to against further occurrence, because it is not good for the students, it is not good for the parents, it's not good for the educational sector, it's not good for the nation. So it's in our interest that will guide against these human errors. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. Well, now that you've mentioned JAMB, and talking about the issues with our education, also recently we had reports of JAMB mass failure, particularly from the Southeast and Lagos. And in the midst of all of that, we saw reports of the story of a young girl who took her own life as a result of the JAMB failure. And a few days later, we saw JAMB coming out to publicly apologize and, take the blame for the poor performance of the students. And then after that, the exams were rescheduled and students were made to retake the examinations. So, I mean, while we are battling WAEC, we also had issues with JAMB. And it's interesting because everything is coming together just at the same time. And even though JAMB did say that they had technical issues, technical glitches, some students complained about the questions not having answers on them, some saying that some questions were missing, say about 10 questions were missing, just so many issues, even though they claim that these issues were from machines. But what measures do you think could have been implemented to prevent such occurrences in the future? Yeah. I'll come to you, Mrs. Eto, with that.
For them to be missing questions or some questions not having
answers, yes.
We discover that it is lack of preparation. If they actually prepared it well and on time, like what we do most times, when you have issues like that, after you have prepared your questions, and one good thing is this, it's not supposed to be by one person. JAMB as a body like that. Having prepared such questions, maybe the way we are here like this, if we are working together as JAMB officers,
yes,
maybe I have prepared the questions, I've said the questions. Madam, please can you proofread this thing to see if it is correct?
Exactly.
That is one point, because if I have made a mistake, then maybe her proofreading it will just spotlight where the mistake is.
Yes.
So to some extent, I feel there's a form of negligence in their own parts.
Okay.
And if not for that, a situation where you have prepared the questions and somebody actually proofread it, you would have discovered it right in the office that this question is not correct, or this question does not have an answer. But the situation, maybe they already prepared it, and as such, they will meet such this thing. So as such, what I would say to JAMB or to WAEC is the examination body like there's a body that I belong to, those that prepare the question is different.
Okay.
Those that proofread is different.
Mm.
Those that print is different. A does not have a relationship with B. B does not have a relationship with C. That is, we call it continuous online program, in the sense that, what do I mean? Your responsibility is this. Yours is just to write the question.
Yes.
Mr. B's own is just to edit it or proofread it to see if it is correct. Then Mr. C's own is just to print. You that is a printer cannot ask this, cannot set the question. You that is editing cannot set the question. Yours is just to cross-check if these questions that are actually being set, if they are correct. Then you that is printing cannot still do that of the edition. So what am I trying to say? A situation where you have a balanced body that actually set up these questions, you will discover that such errors will not occur. And I will have to plead with either the Wassce or Jamb officials that they should have such bodies in such a way that those that actually taught the courses, you just set the questions. Then there will be a second body that will just edit. Then your third body is to print. There is no relationship. By the time you do that, you discover that such errors can be omitted.